In the Antarctic Ocean, 28 people were aboard a ship, but their ship was trapped amidst millions of tons of ice. They had been stuck in the same place for 7 months. During that time, one night they heard a loud noise from beneath the ship, and the ship tilted to one side. It felt as if someone was trying to push the ship hard from below. What happened next was beyond their imagination. Welcome once again to the videos of Tales of Stories. Ladies and gentlemen, the Antarctic Ocean, where waves are as tall as buildings, winds blow at 100 kilometers per hour, and the water temperature is so low that human blood begins to freeze. Traveling in this ocean is akin to embracing death. Even if you survive the cold and the waves, icebergs the size of mountains easily have the capacity to crush a ship. But 111 years ago, when technology was not so advanced and ships were not well equipped, a group of 28 people became trapped in this terrifying sea. Under the open sky, they spent not just a few weeks or months, but astonishingly a full 2 years. There was nothing but ice as far as the eye could see, fierce winds, a shortage of food and water, and no chance of calling for help. This is a survival story that the world has titled, "The Greatest Survival Story of All Time." The hero of this story is Sir Ernest Shackleton, an explorer whose mission was to test the limits of the human body, and for this reason, he named his ship Endurance. He had undertaken several terrifying missions in his life. In 1901, he was a part of a mission to reach Antarctica. However, he turned back after getting only 750 kilometers away. In 1907, he attempted this mission again but had to return just 150 kilometers before reaching his goal. This time, in 1914, his plan was not only to reach Antarctica but also to cross the continent on foot. The only reason was that Sir Ernest Shackleton wanted to accomplish something that no one had done before. This mission was named the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition, and since the nature of this mission was quite dangerous, no one was willing to join. The first challenge for Sir Ernest was to find a crew for his expedition. So, he wrote an advertisement and published it in the Times newspaper. This was no ordinary travel operator's advertisement. Its opening words were, "Men wanted for hazardous journey." It clearly stated that the pay would be very low, there would be deadly cold to endure, they would have to spend several months in darkness, face danger at every moment, and there would be no guarantee of a safe return. Shackleton wanted to attract those who were not afraid of risks. Soon, he hired a crew of 27 men. He had planned this mission for 4 years, but as the time approached, the dream of his expedition began to fade because World War I had begun. Everyone thought that perhaps the expedition would be cancelled. However, Britain, which was already at war, gave permission for the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. This mission needed an extremely strong ship that could cut through the ice-covered Antarctic Ocean. But this was not an ordinary ship that could be built easily. Fortunately, a ship suitable for Arctic sailing was already available. A Norwegian company had constructed this ship for another explorer who wanted to hunt polar bears through this ship, but their business model failed. Sir Ernest purchased this ship and named it Endurance. Endurance was specifically built from thick American oak and designed to withstand immense pressure from the ice. It was a hybrid ship that had both sails and an engine. Finally, the day arrived that Sir Ernest had been waiting for all these years. On August 8, 1914, Endurance set sail from the English town of Bletchley. For the next 4 months, it continued to travel in the Atlantic Ocean. First, it went to Argentina, then from there to South Georgia Island, and after completing the final preparations, on December 5, 1914, they set the ship's direction toward the Antarctic Ocean and the Weddell Sea. Endurance carried 28 people along with 50 large sled dogs, which were to be used for pulling supplies in the Antarctic ice. This journey lasted for 46 days, and they were only 1 day away from reaching the Antarctic coast. However, on January 18, 1915, the first trouble blocked their way. A thick layer of ice began to form over the Weddell Sea, and at one point, This layer became 18 feet thick, making it impossible for Endurance to break through. In some places, the ice was too weak to even start walking on foot. Endurance became trapped in ice nearly 130 kilometers before reaching its destination, Vassal Bay. Initially, it seemed that this problem was temporary, but in reality, it proved to be the greatest obstacle in the path of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition. After days of continuous efforts, they decided to manually move the 300-ton ship forward. For the next 2 days, they worked tirelessly to cut through the ice and create a path, but the task was much more difficult than they anticipated. After many days of hard work, they managed to move the ship only 300 meters forward. After that, Endurance became trapped again. After a month of attempts to free the ship, finally on February 14, 1915, Sir Ernest lost hope. He decided that the ship should be left to the natural movement of the ice, hoping that as the winter passed, the ice would break itself. During this time, Endurance functioned as a winter station. The crew began to engage in their routine work, but the difference was that the ship was now standing still. The crew was highly motivated, and Sir Ernest maintained discipline on the ship. They occupied themselves by discussing, playing soccer, cutting each other's hair, and spending time cooking, all while waiting for the day when the ice would break and provide a way forward or backward. Days went by for the crew on Endurance, and they became even closer to each other. They even developed an emotional attachment to the animals. Everyone hoped that one day they would be close to some civilization. But perhaps nature had different plans. In April 1915, the ice began to break, but due to rising pressure, the layers of ice began to stack on top of each other, causing an unexpected event. The compressing millions of tons of ice began to exert pressure on Endurance as well. At this point, it was crucial to free the ship from the pressure of the ice. Thus, everyone worked together to remove the ice. After weeks of hard work, this problem was temporarily solved, but the danger was still present. On the night of July 14, 1915, a loud noise suddenly came from beneath the ship, and Endurance tilted to one side. No one knew what had happened. Was it a collision with a whale or something else? Somehow, the night passed, but when morning came, what they saw was unbelievable. The compressing ice layers had not only tilted the ship to one side but had also completely broken its rudder, which was used to turn the ship. The crew of Endurance had now been stuck there for 7 months, and they were more than 2,000 kilometers away from any human settlement. No communication and no hope for help. If they had any hope, it was in Sir Ernest Shackleton. On October 18, 1915, the dream of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition had been shattered. For 9 months, the mission's crew had been trapped in the same place. Then one night, a wave of pressure came, quickly tilting Endurance by 30 degrees. Now the risk of the ship leaking began to loom over them. Water started to fill in due to cracks in some places. The entire crew worked throughout the night to prevent the water from entering the ship. But the shelter above them seemed to be only temporary. On October 27, 1915, Sir Ernest Shackleton ordered the ship to be evacuated because survival was now the only option. Essential supplies were taken out, animals, food, lifeboats, and bedding, everything was taken out, forcing the entire crew to come out under the open sky on a blanket of ice. The ship that had been their support for several months was now breaking down under the pressure of the ice and slowly beginning to sink into the water. Now everyone had just one question in their minds: how long would they have to wait on floating ice? Sir Ernest Shackleton decided that staying there was not risk-free. He knew of an island called Paulet, located 550 kilometers away, where they could find shelter and supplies. But reaching there with just 3 lifeboats was not sufficient. Because the ice that could crush such a large ship, what were these lifeboats? Hence, they decided to walk to this island. They began their journey toward Paulet Island, which was the most dangerous part of their adventure. For the next 6 months, the crew faced deadly dangers. The ice sheet on which they set up camp would either have holes or begin drifting with the water's flow. Fortunately, these ice sheets were slowly drifting toward Paulet Island. So, Sir Ernest decided that they would float on the ice sheet to reach Paulet Island. However, their food and water supply had run out. Anything they could find on the floating ice sheet, such as penguins and seals, they would try to hunt. By February 1916, they had been traveling for 13 months. The condition was such that they were surviving on just a biscuit a day. By the next month, while waiting for supplies on Paulet Island, conditions worsened to the point where they had to kill their dogs. They managed to sustain their lives for the next few days. They hoped to find supplies upon reaching Paulet Island. But the floating island they were on changed its direction and started moving toward Elephant Island instead of Paulet Island. For the next several days, there were tumultuous scenes in the ocean. The temperature dropped to -20 degrees, and many crew members suffered from frostbite. Their mouths and tongues were so swollen that swallowing anything became difficult. Suddenly, April 1916 arrived. Somehow, with the help of broken ice sheets, they managed to reach Elephant Island. For the first time in the last 16 months, they were able to touch a piece of land. While they took a breath of relief on Elephant Island, the island was completely barren, and it was not possible to remain there for long, especially with the food supply running low. There was only one hope, and that was South Georgia Island, which was 1,300 kilometers away. Sir Ernest Shackleton decided that they would undertake the suicidal mission of reaching South Georgia by lifeboat. He selected some of the crew members and set off from Elephant Island to South Georgia Island on April 24, 1916. This journey is considered one of the most dangerous maritime routes in the world. They faced waves that rose up to 90 feet high. The icy cold was so fierce that every part of their bodies began to freeze. Alongside all these challenges, they had to undertake this journey without GPS and without a compass, relying only on the stars and the sun. Despite their best efforts, they could not cover more than 80 kilometers a day. After 16 days, on May 10, 1916, Sir Ernest Shackleton and 5 crew members finally succeeded in reaching South Georgia Island. But there was one problem. They had reached the wrong side of South Georgia Island, facing 4,000 feet high mountains. After 36 continuous hours of climbing, they finally reached the other side where a whaling station was located. Shackleton was in such a bad condition that the people at the whaling station did not recognize him. No one could believe that Sir Ernest, who had set sail almost a year and a half ago, had arrived in this condition. After staying for 3 days in South Georgia, Sir Ernest set out to reach Elephant Island, where he had left 22 men in dire condition. He made several unsuccessful attempts to reach Elephant Island. Finally, on August 30, 1916, he saw smoke rising from a distance on Elephant Island, which had been lit as a signal. Sir Ernest did not know how many of his men had survived, but upon approaching, he was astonished to find all the crew on Elephant Island alive and well. He had set out from England for the first time on August 8, 1914. After a full 2 years and 22 days, he successfully returned his entire team safely back home. Although he never completed his original mission, his survival story earned him fame and recognition that perhaps he would never have attained even after accomplishing his mission. 107 years after this incident, in 2022, Endurance was finally found in the Antarctic Ocean. Endurance still remains perfectly preserved on the ocean floor 3,000 meters deep. Even the name written on it can still be read clearly. I hope you all will like and share this video from Tales of Stories. Thank you very much for your loving comments. We will meet again in the next amazing video.